Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In modern Chinese history, the name of the national hero Koxinga, Zhang Xianzhong, is widely recognized. However, few are aware that the path he took to reclaim Taiwan was actually laid out by another man long before. He was not a high-ranking court official, nor was he born into a prestigious family. He was a pirate overlord who rose from humble origins. He had once been a pirate, a spy, and a smuggler, yet eventually became a high-ranking official in the Ming dynasty. He was China's most successful maritime merchant and the most feared traitor by the Qing army. He conquered the waters of East Asia using firearms, built international relations with silver, and even made deals with the Dutch, Portuguese, and the Japanese shogunate. He was Zhang Xianzhong. A man who founded a nation on the sea, a father who was surpassed by his son but never forgotten. This is a real story about money, power, betrayal, and family, a sea legend forged in the midst of life-and-death struggles and negotiations amid gunfire. Today, we will delve into this forgotten history and uncover the true story of how Zhang Xianzhong, the Emperor of the Seas, rose from a wandering youth to the pinnacle of power in East Asia. Zhang Xianzhong was born in 1604 in Quanzhou, Fujian. His birth name was Zheng Yiguan. The records of his early life are varied, but one thing is clear: he did not come from an illustrious family. Quanzhou, at the time, was an important port city in the south of China, but due to the region's terrain, land resources were extremely scarce, mountains dominated the landscape, leaving little arable land. The majority of common people struggled to make a living. As a result, many had to go to sea for work, and, heading to the South Seas, became the way out for many people from Fujian. Zhang Xianzhong was rebellious in his youth, and there are even rumors that he was once driven out of his family for misbehavior. Some say he seduced his father's concubine, and after being punished by his father, he ran away. While this story may be exaggerated, it reflects the strong rebellious spirit and independent personality he had from a young age. At the age of 18, Zhang Xianzhong went to Macau to join his uncle, who was doing business there. This decision would change his life. In Macau, he was exposed to Western culture and learned Portuguese. It is recorded that he was even baptized in a Catholic church in Macau, adopting the name Nicholas Aspey. His ability to adapt to foreign languages and cultures quickly helped him stand out, and he began to act as an intermediary between Chinese and Westerners. Thanks to his uncle's introduction, he traveled to Hirado in Japan, an important port for China-Japan trade at the time and a gathering place for many Chinese maritime merchants. There, he met another person who would change his fate, Li Dan. Li Dan was also from Quanzhou and had established a large trading network in Manila, Philippines. However, after the Manila massacre in 1593, most of his forces were destroyed. He then fled to Hirado to rebuild his power. Li Dan was not only a major leader in the smuggling trade but also possessed a powerful private army, earning the title of King of the Seas. He had dozens of large merchant ships that sailed across East and Southeast Asia, even establishing cooperative relationships with the Dutch. Seeing Zhang Xianzhong's talent, language skills, and ability to manage, Li Dan brought him into his fold. The two developed a very close relationship, and some rumors even suggest that Li Dan regarded Zhang Xianzhong as an adopted son. Under Li Dan's leadership, Zhang Xianzhong quickly rose to prominence, assisting with trade management and representing him in negotiations with Vietnam, Luzon, and other places. Meanwhile, colonial conflicts between the Dutch and the Spanish in East Asia were intensifying. The Dutch had attempted to seize Macau multiple times in an effort to break the Portuguese monopoly on trade with China. In 1622, after a failed attempt to capture Macau, the Dutch turned their attention to the Pescadores Islands, aiming to establish a foothold for entering the Chinese market. The Ming dynasty, wary of this move, dispatched an army to suppress them. However, the Dutch had the upper hand militarily, with strong fortifications and advanced artillery technology. Though the Ming forces had numerical superiority, their outdated equipment made it difficult to succeed in their attacks. The battle dragged on for months, with both sides exhausted. At this critical juncture, Zhang Xianzhong appeared as a key figure. As an important intermediary between the Chinese merchants and the Dutch, he played a decisive role in negotiations. He suggested that the Dutch withdraw from the Pescadores Islands and instead occupy the southern part of Taiwan, specifically the area of Tainan, later known as the location of the Fort Zeelandia. This arrangement was mutually beneficial. The Dutch gained a relatively secure base from which they could continue informal trade with coastal China, while the Ming dynasty avoided the embarrassment of foreign forces occupying Chinese waters for an extended period. As a result, Zhang Xianzhong was able to negotiate a favorable outcome, clearing his name as a pirate and earning the forgiveness of the Ming court. He was officially accepted as a law-abiding citizen. During these years, Zhang Xianzhong married a woman named Tagawa in Japan. Their son, who would later be known as Koxinga, Zhang Xianzhong, was born. However, due to the demands of his maritime business, Zhang Xianzhong did not remain in Japan for long. Shortly after his son's birth, he left his family and returned to China to focus on his career. After the death of Li Dan, Zhang Xianzhong gradually took over the vast maritime network left behind by his predecessor. His influence spread not only along the coasts of Fujian and Guangdong but also extended to Taiwan, Luzon, and Vietnam. There are many rumors about how he became the heir to Li Dan's empire, with one story claiming he threw 30 sacred cups, and all of them turned up holy, which was interpreted as a sign of destiny. However, in reality, he seized power through political maneuvering and force, taking control of Li Dan's network from the hands of Li Dan's son, Li Gua. He then formed his own armed fleet, utilizing Western firearms and recruiting elite soldiers. He even spent large amounts of money to hire Western gunners. Zhang Xianzhong was strict with his subordinates. He forbade them from plundering coastal villages and often sent people to distribute money and food to impoverished fishermen. His operations were well organized, resembling a state-like system. There were accounts, taxes, regulations, and even diplomatic representatives handling relations with the Dutch, Japan, and Vietnam. This organization was no longer a simple pirate group, but a full-fledged maritime regime. The Dutch referred to him as the Great King of the Chinese Seas, while the Portuguese called him the Emperor of the East Sea. In the eyes of the coastal villagers, he was a governor who provided protection and maintained order. Zhang Xianzhong's capitalist expansion eventually caught the attention of the Ming court. Faced with such a powerful, maritime king, who controlled thousands of ships and maintained connections with overseas territories, the Ming dynasty chose to compromise. In 1628, Zhang Xianzhong was formally recruited into the imperial service and appointed as the naval commander of the southern Fujian and Jiangxi coastline. This marked the Ming dynasty's final transformation of the Wokou pirates. Zhang Xianzhong, once a fugitive, became an official regional military and political leader. This was the beginning of a unique coexistence model between the imperial court and local powers. He continued to oversee the original maritime trade system, collecting merchant taxes on behalf of the court and maintaining the court's interests along with his own. However, as the Ming dynasty faced increasing turmoil, with Li Zicheng's rebellion leading to the fall of Beijing, Zhang Xianzhong found himself caught in a dilemma. On one hand, he was a pillar of the old Ming dynasty. On the other hand, he sought to preserve his family's hereditary interests in Fujian. In 1646, when the Qing army marched south, Zhang Xianzhong surrendered to the Qing court in the hope of protecting his family. Yet, his son, Koxinga, resolutely opposed the Qing and became a national hero by reclaiming Taiwan and establishing the Kingdom of Tungning. In the end, Zhang Xianzhong was placed under house arrest by the Qing court, and in 1661, he was secretly executed at the age of 57. The life of Zhang Xianzhong was a transaction between power and destiny. He spent half his life conquering the seas but was ultimately defeated by fate on land. He surrendered to the Qing court to secure peace for his family, but in doing so, he faced betrayal and contempt from his son, Koxinga. He once commanded a fleet of 1,000 ships and amassed immense wealth, but he died far from home, his body never returned. History remembers the loyalty of Koxinga but forgets the brilliance of Zhang Xianzhong. Yet without Zhang Xianzhong, there would have been no Koxinga. Without the 10 years of painstaking effort by Zhang Xianzhong, the fate of Taiwan might have been entirely different. In that era torn apart by storms, gunpowder, and the rise and fall of dynasties, Zhang Xianzhong was both a traitor and a foundation builder, a warlord and a father. Today, as the seas are calm and the waves are still, we look back at that grand maritime journey and cannot help but ask, what made a young man from a Fujian fishing village challenge the order of all of East Asia? What made him, at the peak of power, lay down his sword and walk into the prison of fate? The answer to history may not just be written in court documents, but hidden in the very seas where he once ruled. This is History and Culture channel. Like and subscribe are the biggest help and support for us. Thank you everyone, see you next time.